Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So this is the start of my new series, Heroes of the Imperium, where I make videos dedicated to those people who have stood out in the glorious eyes of the Emperor. This could be anything from a guardsman to a space marine to an inquisitor to a custodian to a sister of battle. Anyone who is a hero in the eyes of the Imperium will be covered in this new series. And where better to start than one of the greatest space marines who ever lived. Probably the greatest space marine who ever laid his hands on a power sword. Sigismund, first captain of the Imperial Fist. Later then went on to become the first High Marshal of the Black Templars. So let's jump in and let's discuss the last Crusader. Much like many of the famous characters during the Great Crusade, Sigismund was believed to be one of the, if not the most finest Astartes that ever lived. His name was echoed through the legions as the master blade wielder. Before Horus turned traitor and took 9 of the damned legions into the darkness with him, Sigismund befriended most of the first captains of the traitor legions. It was his friendship with Khan, later known as Khan the Betrayer, where Sigismund learnt to bind his weapons with chains to his power armor. Sigismund and Khan would spend many hours in the battle cages honing each other's skills and eventually making a bond of brotherhood. Sigismund was once beaten in the cages, but this was down to treachery from none other than the first captain of the Night Lords, who was known as Sevatar. The duel only came to an end as Sevatar headbutted Sigismund and broke the rules of the engagement, seeing Sevatar disqualified and thrown from the cages. Even Primarchs commentated on the prowess of Sigismund. It is rumoured that Sanguinius, Primarch of the Blood Angels, remarked, "Less my brother Dawn's champion, and more deaths himself." It was Sigismund, along with his Primarch Rogel Dawn, that first learnt of the betrayal of Horus and the legions turning against the Emperor. Sigismund and a squad of the Templar Brethren that accompanied the Primarch were the first to board the crippled Eisenstein, and under the command of Battle Captain Nathaniel Garrow, learnt of the betrayal of Istvan. As the betrayal of Horus grew, and planets were engulfed in wars and flame, Dawn slowly crept back to Terra to reinforce the last bastion of man. With him, Sigismund stood firm. Soon enough, the shadows of treachery had reached Mars, and with it, open rebellion. Sigismund was sent to lead 4 companies of Imperial Fist to resecure the main forges on Mars. Sigismund, along with his Imperial Fist brethren, managed to secure large quantities of munitions for shipment back to the homeworld of Terra, including nearly 12,000 suits of Mark IV power armor and twice as many weapons. As the forces of Horus slowly pushed on through the Sol system, and his hand slowly choked the life of the homeworld of Terra, Sigismund's fury would finally be unleashed at the siege of Terra. Sigismund was chosen by none other than the Primarch Rogel Dawn, his gene-father, to serve as the Emperor's first champion. It was at this moment that Sigismund donned the black armor that was later wore by his chapter, the Black Templars. And now holding his sacred sword and donning his black armor, Sigismund thrust himself onto the enemy, slaying all that stood before him. There was no quarter given, for those who had turned their backs on the Emperor's glorious light would receive only one thing from the first captain of the Imperial Fist, and that would be vengeance. It is rumoured that every champion that Sigismund came across was slain upon the battlefield. One of these was known to be none other than his good friend, Khan, now known as Khan the Betrayer. As the shields of the vengeful spirit were lowered, and the Emperor and his chosen Primarchs boarded upon the ship to seek out Horus and pay their dish of vengeance, Sigismund was given the honour to lead the ground forces. After Horus was destroyed, and the traitor forces were broken at the siege, Rogel Dawn and Sigismund unleashed a campaign known as the Scouring, but the legions would be changed forever. Rabuti Gilliman sent forth the Codex Astartes, which broke up the legions from their former strength into smaller, more organised forces. This was known as the Second Founding, and with it, the creation of the Black Templar chapter. Sigismund would become the first High Marshal of the Black Templars, and with it, his brothers donned the black armour and their campaign of vengeance was unleashed upon the galaxy. Over countless years, the traitor forces that had once engulfed the galaxy in flames were pushed back into the eye of terror. Hundreds of years passed, and with it, the memory of the traitor forces. The High Lord slowly forgot about the true enemy, but not Sigismund, not the Templar king, who sat on his bronze throne, seeking his vengeance upon those who had turned their backs on the Emperor. Time eroded Sigismund, but after 1,000 years, the arch-enemy finally reared its head in its vengeance upon humanity once more. As they broke from the eye, they were met by Sigismund and his brothers, who thrust themselves upon the spear tip of the enemy, seeking their vengeance and retribution. But the enemy forces outnumbered those of the loyalists, and the fleet was slowly destroyed. As the days of old, Sigismund sought the head of the beast, who was none other than Abaddon, first captain to Horus Lupercal. Sigismund had looked for Abaddon on the fields of terror, but always lesser men were in his way. As the two legendary warriors faced each other on board a Black Templar ship, Abaddon tried to turn Sigismund to his cause, explaining his reasons for his return and their new crusade. Sigismund would not be swayed. He would seek vengeance out for all those who had betrayed the Emperor's light and kill any who stood in his path. The pair clashed, and an epic duel of warriors began. Though Sigismund, ravaged by age, was not his former self. Sigismund saw an opening on Horus, but it would mean his end. He took it and rammed his sword through the chest of the arch-traitor, but with it, Horus slashed and cut Sigismund in twain, leaving him in two pieces upon the bloody, stained floor. As Sigismund lay dying upon the floor, he gazed upon Abaddon and spoke his final words.
"You will die as your weakling father died. Soulless, honorless, weeping, ashamed."